Hello everyone, today we will model a gas mixture, particularly air with CO2, and this mixing happens in a chamber with a diameter of 40 millimeters and the length of the chamber is 200 millimeters. It has two inlets, one inner inlet with a diameter of 8 millimeters, an inlet velocity of 2 meters per second, and a temperature of 300 Kelvin, and a large outer inlet with a diameter of 40 millimeters and an inlet velocity of 1 meters per second and a temperature of 500 Kelvin. We will start with the geometry. So we will create a quarter of the model. Let's begin by switching to millimeters. To create the model, we will generate two arcs, and based on these arcs, we will create a surface and pull it. Let's create our points using the coordinates in the table on screen. Now we can create the arcs. First, select the arc tool and then the points showcased on the screen to make the small and large arcs. We'll also need to make the radial lines for the small arc and for the large arc. Now we can switch to creating a surface based on these edges. So let's start with the larger surface first, then hiding it to allow us to make the smaller surface. Now we have two surfaces. Let's pull these surfaces. The direction is positive and we will pull it to 200 millimeters. Similarly, we'll pull the small one, but before that, hide the large surface and we will pull the small in the negative direction of -40. Now we have two bodies and we can hide the surface. We don't need it anymore. Next, combine both bodies using the addition boolean. We can move on to naming the geometry. The leftmost surface will be called inlet 1, the leftmost large surface will be called inlet 2, and the opposite side will be outlet. We'll also need symmetries. Symmetry 1 will be the back surface and called sim 1. The bottom will be sim 2. In total, we have one outlet, one body, two inlets, two symmetries, with the remaining surfaces being called wall automatically. We can now move on to the Mesh tab. In the Mesh tab, all the settings can be left as default, and now we can press Generate Mesh. Once the mesh is done, we can take a quick glance at it, and we see that it's relatively coarse, but for the tutorial it will be alright. Let's move on to the Setup tab. In the Setup tab, most of the fluid model settings will remain default with the exception of changing the mixture to gas mixture. This automatically changes the flow type to compressible, and we can now see two different gases in the fluid domain section. First, we'll select the top domain and change it to air and apply. Next, we'll do the same for the second domain, changing it to CO2. Now we can set the boundaries. So let's select inlet 1 first. We'll set the x velocity to 2 meters per second and the temperature to 300 Kelvin, and the length scale to 0.04. The rest is default and apply. So let's select the second inlet. For this one, we will keep the x velocity at 1 meters per second, and we will increase the temperature to 500 Kelvin and length scale to 0.02. We'll also change the air to 0 and CO2 to 1 since this is CO2. So now we have two mixtures. For the outlet, click on it and apply with default settings. For the wall, click and apply it with default settings also. Lastly, select symmetry and apply it to sim 1, then sim 2. With a boundary condition set, we can move on to the solution tab. Let's add a monitoring point at 0.1 for x, 0.001 for y, and 0.001 for z. Once made, set it to monitor velocity and press run. Now that the simulation is done and the solution is stable, we can go to the results tab. Here we can select sim 1 and do velocity to see the mixing. Now let's do another for air. Lastly, let's do the temperature. Thank you for watching and happy simulating.